Next, we have a serial entrepreneur, a man who's worn all kinds of hats, worked both sides of the table as an investor, as a founder, and now is co-founder of Combine from Atlanta, Georgia, KP.
Thank you. Thank you for making it up today. I know it was a good party last night out here. So I'm not going to talk too much about my company. We have a website, and I try not to shamelessly plug everything that I do. But really wanted to talk to you a little bit more about kind of a massive trend that I've seen, and also kind of a market that's played with me for my entire career. So I've been starting companies since I was 19. And so this industry and this market has kind of cried wolf to me a couple of times. I've tried a few times, succeeded and failed, but I think the timing is right. So as entrepreneurs, we say these things about changing the world. We want to change the world. And sometimes that might mean a dating app, which I'm not sure if that changes the world. But I think what we're seeing is, as entrepreneurs, we really are moving towards changing the physical world around us. We've conquered the digital world, and now we're seeing interesting opportunities and ideas around changing the physical world. We still have people starving. We still don't have water in a lot of places. We still have people without housing. So we start shifting our thoughts and ideas away from these digital opportunities to more physical opportunities. And so that's where the market opportunity of BuiltTech comes in. So BuiltTech is really everything you see around us. It's power, it's water, it's roads, and it's a market that is really, really big. So if you think about the largest markets in the world, construction, buildings, et cetera, are massive. And really, it kind of shapes our world in terms of what we see in the future and what we want to see for our kids and our grandkids. I don't see a lot of people with grandkids in the room. But so anyway, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background and why this has been kind of a lifelong journey for me. Does anybody recognize the computer up there? No? Maybe? So when I was 13 years old, my mother is a software programmer, and she came home with this thing from work because she was on call. And so I started playing with it and programming with it. It was a compact PC, kind of the first portable PC out there. And then my dad was a structural engineer. And a friend of his at university gave him a floppy disk. Who knows what a floppy disk is? Okay. Okay, so we got a floppy disk. My dad says, here's a floppy disk to do engineering design. Go figure it out. I'm 14 years old. So I plug it into the computer and start figuring it out. And that's when I started programming, was around age 13. I went on and actually went to Georgia Tech in Atlanta and became a civil engineer. My idea was, I already know how to program. Why would I get a degree in programming? I'll be a civil engineer. I'm going to go design bridges and airports and all the fun things. And what I really started doing was still moving towards technology. So I thought about automating. This is in 1994, right? 1994. So I said, there's so much opportunity with technology. I was building websites and things for bars and restaurants, people that would pay me on the side while I was working as a civil engineer. And then I came up with this grand idea, and this is in 1997. AOL days, Netscape days. Let's do construction management on the internet. And this is in 1997, and I quickly realized that most contractors, A, didn't know what a PC was, B, didn't have an email address, and if they did, it was a CompuServe address, and it was just way too early to market. So me and my partner, we funded this company with credit cards. We said, we can't survive. The market's just not there. We're way too early. And we were very fortunate. In 1996, there was a telecom boom in the US, and we shifted it to the telecom industry, and the telecom industry loved the idea of managing projects on this thing called the web. So we took off, 2 people to 1,200 people, went public in 1999, which wasn't a big feat because in 1999, for those of you that were around, everyone was going public. So we did that, and then I left in 2002. and said, I'm going to give it a try again. I'm going to get back into this industry. I'm going to figure it out. There's so many opportunities. And went back at it. So my first move was to buy a civil engineering firm. So I thought if I bought a firm, I can innovate from the inside out. And then someone showed me this thing called BIM, which was 3D virtual construction and design. And I thought, this is amazing. It'll change the world. I'm going to start a company around this. I'm going to give it another go and fix this trillion-dollar-a-year industry. So made great progress. We grew to about 200 people in 3 years. We're just cranking it up. Everything's going well. And then 2008 happens, which was the big Great Recession in the US. So I was fortunate to sell the company, literally fortunate. We had probably 15 days of cash flow, cash left in the bank. My employees apparently wanted salaries and wanted to get paid. So sold the company in 2009. I sold it to the largest blueprinting company in the world. These people made $800 million a year by printing plans on construction sites. And I was their new digital strategy, and they were based in the Bay Area. I commuted there for about 2 years, every Sunday night from Atlanta to the Bay Area, back Friday morning. And it was very interesting because I literally had an executive, when the iPad come out, said, I just bought this iPad thing. It's a really fancy piece of glass. I don't see it going anywhere. Nobody will ever use this thing, especially in construction. They'll never use this. They like printing. That's how that works. So, of course, I was disappointed once again. The industry failed me again. So then I got a call from a very poetic architect, Frank Gehry, saying, hey, we built some really cool technology. We think we want to be a technology company. Can you come help me build a technology company? So then I decided to start commuting from Atlanta to Los Angeles every week to work with Frank Gehry. It was a very interesting experiment of how do you take an architect and turn it into an architecture firm and create a technology company. It's very hard. But we did it. That company ended up getting sold to Trimble. I decided to take a year off, which I highly recommend. I call it the pre-tirement. You should all pre-tire at some point in your career if you can for at least a year. And I did that. And then I got a call from Georgia Tech saying, hey, we have this incubator. It's the oldest incubator in the world. We hear you're not doing anything, so the price is right. Can you come volunteer? I volunteered and started coaching startups. Then they gave me a part-time job. Then they gave me healthcare benefits, which in the US is a big thing. We all work for healthcare benefits. And so then they put me in charge. So next thing you know, I'm running an incubator with about 30 portfolio companies, and I started getting excited. One thing I started seeing was people trying to solve the construction industry, the design industry, energy. And I was like, guys, stay away from that. It's going to fool you. It's already tricked me a few times. Don't do it. And so I started getting excited about that. So that's when we started the Combine. I left there. Started a robotics company. So I started building out my portfolio and said, I don't want to be a venture capitalist. I don't want to be a 100% entrepreneur. I want to kind of do both. So that's what we do. We do both. We manage companies. We start companies. Me and my partners can sit around and say, that's a cool idea. Let's go do that. And we go do it. So that's kind of our business. I left all my contact information. There's some slides in here that have a ton of data around it. I don't expect you to take notes or even read it. I'm not even reading it. But if you hit me up, I'll send you this slide. Essentially, you're talking about a $1 trillion-a-year industry that has massive opportunities for disruption. And this industry has continued to trick me. I've tried several times to execute in this market because it's so big. You know, when you go to investors and talk about your total addressable market, and you're able to say it's $1 trillion, that's a great slide, but how you execute on it is a different thing. So there's a lot of data, right? So what I found is when the BCGs of the world, the McKinseys, the World Economic Forum came out last year and said this is the most massive opportunity for disruption, and if entrepreneurs don't take it on, the world will be a horrible place. Like, we've got to go innovate this industry. We basically, as an industry of the built environment and BuiltTech, have declined in productivity and innovation. Even the farmers are beating us, right? So we're at the bottom of the pile, which creates a massive opportunity for technologies and innovators. But why now, right? So I told you, this industry keeps tricking me. So is it going to trick me again? Am I going to put a bunch of money into this and find out it'll go nowhere? I don't think so. I think what's shifting now is now's a great time. You look at platform technologies. When I was a young engineer, I had to go request a $6,000 laptop and about $10,000 in physical wired sensor technology to wire up my job sites so I could see what was happening real time. Now I can do that with an iPad and $100 sensors. So the technology costs and barriers have come way, way down. The big thing is the culture. So if you're in charge of a real estate development project or running a building or an engineering firm, you're now in charge. And when you started work as a young engineer, architect, developer, you started day one with a computer and an email address. You don't know anything other than technology. So there is no good old boy with a pickup truck and blueprint saying, well, we always print everything out. You now have a new culture within these organizations that are very interested in buying. And they buy fast. Because believe it or not, I worked on the Apple campus. The project manager on that was 40 years old and ran a $4 billion budget. They could buy whatever they wanted to for that project. They didn't have to ask permission from anyone. So as an entrepreneur, you have one person to convince, and they can write the check. So it's a great market that way. If you look at venture capital growth, VCs, it's venture capital for a reason. They go where the opportunities are, where the bodies are. And right now, just 2 weeks ago, a firm in LA raised a $250 million fund focused on this. A lot of the vintage funds that have been doing it for decades are all now raising multiple $100 million funds. So there's a lot of money going into this market. So take a look at it, and I think it's a next big, massive opportunity. Here's kind of my current portfolio. I dabble in vegan gelato. I dabble in music industry. Atlanta is quite popular in the rap business, so we do a lot of things with entertainment. But for our most part, we're highly focused on BuiltTech. We literally kind of spun these companies out last year and funded them. Hummingbird, basically, our view is with urban densities, we have to go up, right? We can't go wide, we have to go up. So now all of a sudden we have technology. If you want to build the next tallest building in the world, talk to us. We have the technology to do it. So we're innovating that. One thing that people realize, we have massive data infrastructure out there in data centers. If someone blows up your data center, you have a massive problem. But more likely, if something goes off 100 yards away, your data center goes down. We've solved being able to kind of make data centers shock-proof, so to speak. If you look at IoT and sensors in your phones, that technology to design IoT is almost 20 years old, to design and simulate how to design the next IoT chip or MEMS chips. Our technology runs 1,000 times faster. We're cutting design cycles by a half to a third for the next innovation of any kind of IoT. So we're getting massive adoption there from the GEs and Siemens of the world. You start talking about materials, buildings, infrastructure, you think asphalt, concrete, wood, that's shifting. Now you're talking carbon fiber, you're talking 3D printing, you're talking about a lot of new technology. The software to simulate and design with those new applications and materials doesn't exist. So we've built technology to go out there so you can now design buildings and infrastructure with the latest composites and materials. My favorite company, I'm biased, companies are like children, you always have a favorite. Construe it's a 100% cloud-based design application that allows designers globally to stay in their favorite application, design tool, and collaborate with people all around the world. So you're talking about getting the best designers, the best consultants on a project on the cloud, day one working globally. And lastly, so most people don't realize this, 10% of a building ends up in the dumpster. There's that much waste on a construction project. Most of that is attributed to materials coming in on the wrong time, getting destroyed, getting damaged, and a lot of waste. One of our companies is getting on-demand materials, so when you're building that project, That material shows up an hour before you need it. You don't have to worry about storing it. You don't have to worry about carrying inventory. I'm not sure why I have a picture, because I'm right here. So a little bit of background. Like I said, I gave you my details. I literally get about 50 to 100 emails a week. I try to respond to almost all of them. This is a market that's very passionate to me, but it's also wrought with landmines and nuances, so I'm always willing to help anybody that wants to get into the space. Thank you.